the self alone exists. This knowledge, which is not for any other, but only for the self, by the self, in the self, of the self, is realized conclusively in a self-evident manner by all who, following Sri Bhagavan's direction to inquire, who am I, realize the ever non-existence of an individual entity. In the unreality of the individual shines the reality of the self, in which there is no ignorance, no bondage, no potential for suffering, no duality of any kind. To realize the non-dual truth, inquire. Determine the nature of your own being. That which knows being is being. Brahman knows Brahman. The individual or ego never really came to be. Knowledge of this is spoken of as its end. Really, it is only the self, which is perfectly full at all times, that exists. The essence is always egoless, and the means of practice is egolessness. That which adheres to egolessness is devotion to truth. That which reveals the ego was never born is knowledge. If the ego is not, there is no doubt about anything else. And the perfect fullness of the real self is found to be existing uninterruptedly forever. Now, if you have a question about this, please feel free to ask. Or if you want to relate your own experience, at any point, please feel free to speak.
In Ramana's instruction, who am I? I started to think about that. Why does he have me ask that question? In it is kind of implied that I must not know who I am, and that finding that out would be a good thing to do. So, if there's somebody who doesn't know who they are, how is that one going to figure out who they are if they don't know who they are now. So it's like, who's this one who doesn't know about himself? So what I did was just to sort of set that aside and say, okay, maybe there's somebody who doesn't know about themselves. But I'm just going to not worry about that one and just find out about this one. And how am I going to know myself? What is it that allows me to know who I am? And it brings me to my existence as the only thing that I know directly.
Then that contradicts the presumption with which you started.
Where did I start?
The supposition that there must be someone who does not know who he is.
It was a supposition. Yeah, it was more like a place to start. But it's not...
The inquiry actually doesn't assume anything. It just starts with the basic existence, which is beyond doubt by all. That's why, as he said, it's the only means that does not include the dualities that one is trying to transcend. Such as, I am one who knows, and that is something to be known. The experience directly shows the efficacy of inquiring, who am I? It causes your vision to become non-objective. That is, it abandons the entire conception that there's a this, an objective portion of one's experience. And it also consumes the I, for whom this would be. He has said that the I that seems to be integral to the inquiry gets burned up like the stick in the funeral pyre in the very course of the inquiry.
The experience is being swallowed up by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
To where there's no other self.
Now, if we assume that the individual exists and take that as the supposition, then as he has said in his 5 verses on the one self, that is like a drunken man forgetting who he is and giving a performance in the midst of a crowd, asking, where am I and who am I, while all along he is himself. where there is no other, where being and knowing are one and the same thing. That's the place of the inquiry. That's the place of self-knowledge.
I don't know, the idea that I could pretend that I'm something else is really quite pointless.
That idea also gets swallowed up or consumed in the inquiry. Who would harbor pointless ideas?
Who would harbor any ideas?
I am separate from the self. The I that supposes that is already considered separate from the self. Who is he?
He's like an imposter, out of control at times.
So the Maharshi said he's like the uninvited wedding guest who's not actually invited by the groom or the bride. He seems to take all he wants until he's wanted on some important matter. In other words, his identity, whereupon he quickly disappears from the scene.
Yeah, when you actually say...
He's an imposter. He's not...
Who are you?
He vanishes.
He does.
So the inquiry doesn't really suppose anything, does it? Just based in reality.
If it was supposing something, it wouldn't be an inquiry, it would be something else.
And it would lose its liberating power.
Yeah, it would go off into some objective whatever, and...
Or it would only take one thus far, but no further.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting very hard to go very far. For a couple of reasons. One is I know I have to pretend something, or I have to make a whole story up. And to make up that story and then maintain it with all the suffering that goes along with it, it's just like, no. It's just...
It runs contrary to your nature.
It does. It's just it's just a few small habits that can be easily broken when you inquire.
The habits, the vasanas, the tendencies, they get broken. I would say they get pulled out by the root, but they turn out to be rootless. And the potential for them, the one who engages in them, the one who imagines them, the starting point, the I mode, aham vritti, proves to be unreal, utterly unreal. So that there is no one to create the tendencies, nor was there anyone actually in them.
If I now try to imagine a tendency or a vasana, they're very, very hollow. There's nobody who's actually in those dreams. As far as somebody real in them, there's nobody real in those dreams.
Inquiry enables you to discover how true that is. And then a dream which really did not begin is said to be over.